You have people who they use that situation and surroundings and the hurdles and the problems and the mistakes and whatever, and they use that as like a rocket fuel to become incredibly successful and level-headed, and the way they treat other people. There's other people who will have there's people who will have the exact same background that you've had, and they will use that as an excuse to completely adopt the victim mentality, be nasty towards other people, blame everyone else for their problems, never achieve, never succeed, whatever. And they'll say, oh, it's because my dad kicked me out when I was 16. It's because this happened. It's because this. Like, they use the same. And I find that very interesting. There's people who are from very. I mean, look, I went to an expensive boarding school. I went to Oxford University. I met some complete degenerates from all the same privileges that I have, or seemingly so. You know, cool. They're from this. They've come from money. They come from this, and they just squander it completely. They just go out and they don't appreciate it. They don't have that gratitude. They're not level-headed.
They weren't raised right. They were just raised rich.
There you go. So on paper, it can look like, oh, okay, like this person's kind of got what they need to become successful in whatever sense. And this is how you know so many things come down to, things really do come down to personal choices and taking accountability for your actions and going, okay, look, this is the situation, but this is what I'm going to do about it. These are the cards I was dealt. This is how I'm going to play them. This is what I'm going to do about it. And I sometimes get frustrated in certain conversations, or when I see certain things on social media, especially on X, which used to be Twitter, because you see this thing where people often, I don't know how much you've encountered this, but sometimes people want to tear down or play down other people's successes based on whatever they can do. Do you see what I mean? So someone might see you and what you're doing and see your success, and they'll go, oh, well, it was easy for him because he's a straight white man, right? Oh, if he'd been this, or if he'd been this, or whatever. Like, they don't care about your background. They don't care about your history, your challenges, anything. It's just like, oh, well, I can dismiss off this one. If it's with me, there'll be one black guy who's not successful, and they'll be like, oh, well, it's because of racism, and it's because of this, and it's because of this and this. And, they'll make it a whole racial thing. And then if you have a black guy who is successful, it's like, oh, well, you're privileged, so this one's oppressed. This one is privileged. Like, rather than just acknowledging, like, look, people come from different situations for sure, and that impacts them in all sorts of ways. But as an adult, especially over the course of decades, I'm a firm believer, especially if you're in a country like the USA or the UK, somewhere where there's plenty of opportunity. If you're 50 years old, if you're 40 years old, and you're still just being a bum, right? Like, I'm like, bro, that's on you. Like, that's on you. You can't be a 50-year-old man talking about, oh, well, this thing happened when I was 8 years old, and that's the reason why, for the next 42 years, I was treating myself and other people badly and failing and flopping and everything. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's kind of lame. I don't like it when people try to play down other people's. I believe in celebrating people's achievements and successes, and and perhaps most importantly, trying to learn from that, trying to learn from their perspective, and see what they've done, instead of just trying to immediately think of some excuse why they've succeeded and you haven't, and being like, oh, okay, this is possible. I can learn this from this person, learn this from that person. And I don't know, some people just have this strange victim loserment mindset where they don't do that. And then they complain that they're not successful. And it's like, well, look at your mindset. As you said, mindset, habits, and
mindset, skill set, habits.
Yeah. It's like, well, if that's your mindset, of course you're not going to be successful.
Okay. So let's go back. You're rapping, You're going to Oxford. At some point you started a podcast, because you got a little podcast that you had freaking Elon Musk on.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how you did that, but teach me, because I want Elon on this one.
Yeah.
But that podcast, by the way, where do they go listen to podcasts?
Yeah, sure. It's on all platforms. Real Talk with Zuby. So you can listen on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you want to listen. Just search Zuby or Real Talk with
Elon
Zuby.
wasn't your first one. You have how many episodes?
No, Elon was episode 263.
Yeah, so you've had a lot.
Yeah, 263.
Yeah, guys, go listen. He's got some good guests. Do you talk a lot about this type of stuff, or what's your podcast mainly on?
I just like to have fascinating conversations with fascinating people. It's really that simple. There's not a rule to it beyond that. If I see someone out there, or I'm connected to someone and they're interesting, they've got a story, they've got an interesting perspective on whatever subject or subjects it is, and I'm just like, hey, that's someone I want to talk to. First, I think maybe I first came across your stuff maybe about 2 years ago, and I was like, I want to talk to this guy. I like what this guy's saying. I want to have a conversation, and I know we'd have an interesting conversation.